Hi everybody, I'm Paul Tran from Indicia Training. Welcome to the latest of this year's run of community videos. These videos are designed to give you a little bit of extra help with your interpersonal skills and management and communication skills. We've got 3 videos for you this year: assertiveness skills, conflict management, and this particular video, which is all about time management. What's going to happen is I'm going to be showing you some slides, and every so often I'm going to ask you to pause the recording, get your workbooks out, and do some of the exercises that are in there so that we can get you thinking about making all the stuff we're looking at today really personal to you. So today we're taking a look at time management. Let's get straight in to our slides. Let's take a look at what we're doing today. Whoops. There we go. We'll take a look at time management. We've got some objectives for you today. Our objectives are: we're going to define time management. What is it in practice? We're then going to explore the value of your time. What's an hour of your time worth? This is really useful because you can base a lot of decisions around your prioritization on whether it's worth spending an hour of the company's time on one task or another. The third objective is we're going to demonstrate a model that helps you prioritize your tasks in your busy week. And the fourth objective is to explore a few ways in which we can control our time even better. So what is time management? It is essentially a set of related practical skills that help you to use your time in the most effective way. And the central attitude in time management is to focus on results rather than activity. So when someone tells you that they've been really, really busy, straight back with the question: what have you done? What have you achieved? Because that's what we're going to be measured on at the end of the day. So let's dive straight in. Once we've got a definition, let's have a think about some benefits of managing our time. Before we do that, I'd like you to pause the recording and have a think about some of the ones that you know about. List them all. Pause the video. I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody. I wonder how many benefits you've got. Let's take a look at what we've been thinking about. First of all, what time management does is it helps you assess the value of your time and how effectively you use that time. Second point is it allows us to focus on our priorities. Third thing is it means we can plan projects so they can be successfully completed with adequate resources because we know what we need and we plan to have that. The fourth benefit is it just helps you use your time more effectively. Benefit 5 is that you get the sense that you've created more time. Now, you can't do this. There's 24 hours in a day. That's it. But when you manage your time better, it always feels like you've just got a little bit more time. And that's what good time management can create. It's a great way of helping you manage and avoid the many distractions that we come across, especially these days when we're working from home. And it really helps us to increase our productivity and our personal effectiveness as well. So 7 benefits. I bet you've thought of loads more too that are just as relevant for you. So let's have a think about the value of your time. Now, what we've got on the screen here is a really very, very simple, kind of high level method of working this out. What we've got is we've just plucked a salary of 30,000 out of the air. It's just to make my maths easier, if we're honest, folks. And then we just think about this simple formula: add 10% for NI contribution, add 100% of his salary for overheads. That gives you your total annual cost to whoever you work with. You divide that total by 230. That's the average number of days work per year. If you know how many days you work, put that one in, and then divide the result by the average number of hours you work each day. Let's say 9 for argument's sake. So the total hourly cost we've got here is £30.43. Now, this isn't about comparing the value of your time with anybody else. That isn't really what we're after here. What we're thinking about is when you're asked to do something, what you can do is sit there and say, that's 3 hours, that's X pounds of my organisation's time. Is that the best way I could spend the organisation's money? So I'll give you an example. I live in the Scottish Highlands and I get asked, do you want to come down to London for a meeting? And I'll say, great. How long's the meeting? It's 2 hours. Great. Okay. So are we going to do it on Zoom or Teams, or do you want me to be there? Would like you to be there, Paul. Okay. Right. So that means that if I'm down there, X quid for the flight down there, there's all the tube or whatever you have to do, X quid for the flight back, got me lunch, me tea, whatever you call it. Is that really a good use of time and money? This is what it would cost if we did it on Zoom or Teams. What would you rather do? And what it does, it gets you thinking, not just about whether you enjoy stuff. That is important. It's also about what value does it give your organization? If you spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours doing a set task. I'll be honest with you, I've used this to not attend meetings. I've also used it to justify why I go to one meeting rather than another one, or why I do one piece of work rather than another one, because it's better value for my clients. So let's put to one side what we think about what our hourly cost is, and let's really focus on using this as a way to prioritize what we do. Remember, if you're talking to a senior manager and they may say, well, we always meet on the second Thursday of every month, you could turn around and say, is that worth £30.43 of the organisation's money? Or would you rather that £30.43 was spent somewhere else where it was better value? You might find you're more able to persuade them. And that may mean that you'll make better use of your time. So, the space in your workbook for this, do your own little calculation. Remember that you can change the number of days you work. If it's different, you can change the hours that you work, and you might change the salary if your salary is different. Pause the recording for a few minutes. I'll see you then. Welcome back, everybody. I'll be curious how you use this one, regardless of how much an hour of your time is to your organization. It's really important to know how much an hour of your time is worth to everybody that you work with. Right, what's next? Let's have a think about this idea of urgency versus importance. We'd like to think that most of the things we do at work are important. But we've also got things that have to be done more quickly, straight away, right now, today. They're more urgent and more pressing. What Dwight Eisenhower did, Dwight Eisenhower was a war leader in the US military, became president. Come up with this idea of looking at our busy day, week, month, and dividing the tasks into tasks that are urgent and tasks that are important. In your workbooks, there's a nice little exercise called Paul's in tray. A load of items in my in tray on a Monday morning. And what I'd like you to do is take a look at the items in my in tray and sort them out into two categories: what's urgent and what's important. I'm going to give you 10 minutes to have a look at this. Pause the recording. I'll see you then. Welcome back, everybody. How did you get on with my in tray? I'm not going to give you a big fancy answer here. What I hope you've realised is that the urgent stuff is the stuff that's got to be done today, this afternoon, or by tomorrow. The other stuff's important, but it can wait. And this is a nice way of prioritizing your time, because not only did Dwight Eisenhower have a think about urgency and importance, he also built on it by putting together this matrix. It's the Eisenhower matrix. You may see it as the Covey matrix or Covey quadrant, because Stephen Covey, who wrote that really good book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he kind of co-opted it a little bit. So if you Google it, you'll see Covey, you'll see Eisenhower. Eisenhower was the original guy who came up with this. So that's why we're calling it the Eisenhower Matrix. So 4 quadrants or boxes, all equally important. We're going to go through them one by one, and then I'm going to get you playing with this with your own matrix. So we'll start from the bottom right and go clockwise. Quadrant 4 is all the stuff that we have in our week that is low on importance and low on urgency. Is there anything that isn't urgent or important? We'll be surprised. I mean, some of us might procrastinate. We might do time wasting stuff like have that second cup of tea with somebody. We may just find ourselves looking at a website that's got nothing to do with our work. I don't know, football, the weather, the travel, the telly, whatever it is. This is stuff that we really shouldn't be doing, and we'll minimize what's in here as much as possible. The bottom left quadrant, quadrant 3, is the stuff in your diary that's low on importance but high on urgency. Now, what I want you to think about here is have a think about the tasks that you've got to do today or for the whole week at work, and divide them into things that you must do yourself and things that you could give to somebody else. And if you've got issues with delegating tasks to people, this is the box that makes it happen for you. It's got to be done really, really quickly. It isn't that intricate. It's not that important. You don't really have to do it yourself, do you? Give it to somebody else. Give them the opportunity. If you don't do the stuff that's low on importance and highly urgent because you're thinking it's not that important, I'll save it for later, it ends up in that top left quadrant 1. It becomes just as urgent but highly important. Now, in quadrant 1, you should only really get pressing deadlines, other people's stuff, pressing things for yourself, maybe stuff that other people have thrown in there. My rule with this matrix is to make sure nothing goes into quadrant 1 unless someone slings it in by surprise. You know, the kind of thing. Someone will come to your desk and just say, Paul, I know you're really busy. I've given you 7 things to do today. This has got to be done today. It's urgent. Now, if we have too much in this quadrant, we get stressed, we get overwhelmed, the quality of our work might be affected. We may end up being absent from work. So we've got to be really careful about what ends up there and make sure that none of it has got anything to do with us. Quadrant 2, top right, is sometimes overlooked. Stuff that's highly important and not very urgent. This is where you do your planning, your preparation, your relationship building, your networking, maybe even your learning. If you don't have much in here, it'll store up problems for later because you haven't planned or thought anything through, because you haven't prepared or learned how to do certain things. Always make sure there's enough going on in there to make the other 3 quadrants easier. The thing to remember with this matrix is that, you know, when you keep on top of stuff in quadrant 2, what it means is you'll take time away from quadrants 3 and 4, and anything in quadrant 1 has got to come from other people, not from you. Now, this matrix doesn't give you more time. What it does is it lets you know who's stealing your time, what's stealing your time. And then you can start to think about the conversations that you need to have with dealing with that. So that's the matrix. It's fairly straightforward. There's a few of these in your workbook that you can have a look at with more detail. What I'm going to ask you to do is take a look in your workbooks, because there's a blank one. And I want you to jot down 20 things you've got to do this coming week at work. And when you've jotted them down, I'd like you to place them in the right quadrant. Where are they right now for you? And when you've got all 20 sitting in that matrix, I want you to have a think about how happy you are with how things are set up. Is there a good kind of balance? Is there too much in one particular quadrant? And what are you going to do about it? This will take you 10, 15 minutes, folks. Pause your recording, have a look at the exercise, and I'll see you in 15 minutes' time. Welcome back, everybody. How's your matrix looking? Balanced? Too much weight in one quadrant or another? If you find that there's too much in one quadrant, think about what you could do differently. And if it means you have to have a conversation around resources, products that you need, whether some tasks have to be reallocated, whether you can do part of them and delegate part of them to somebody else. These are conversations that you really must have. It isn't just about you saying, I haven't got enough time. This is about you saying to somebody, I've got this matrix. It's clear that I've got too much that has to be done yesterday. We need to do something about this. Or I've got lots of stuff in quadrant 3, nobody who I can delegate them to. Maybe we've got to do something about that by either bringing people in, training people up more, or reallocating the tasks elsewhere. I've worked in lots of organizations where we've had a chat with people. They've got a large version of this on the office wall or the factory wall. And through the week, they can see things moving about. What that means is they can anticipate when they need to act on them before they become a serious problem and take up too much time. There's loads of stuff on the Eisenhower Matrix on the internet. Do take a look at it. There's some fabulous stuff in your workbook too. I find it a really good way of helping me prioritize my week. And it also helps me realize who and what is stealing me time. So that's the matrix. Have a lot of fun with that. It's a real belter. And then when we've realized where our time is going, we might want to think about some good ideas around planning. How do you plan to make the best use of your time? What do other people do? What advice do they give you? Pause the recording for a few minutes and jot down your ideas for planning best practice. If you were passing this on to someone who's just joined your organization, what ideas would you give them? Pause the recording. I'll see you in a few minutes. Hey, everybody. I bet you've got loads of ideas. We've got a few coming up right now. The first one is to make your plan when it suits you. Some people plan for the week on Friday before they go home or switch their computer off. Some people do it over the weekend. Some people do it Sunday night. Some people do it Monday morning. Do it when it suits you. Make sure you group items together. If you're going to make a lot of phone calls in a day, put them all together so you're in the zone and you're getting those phone calls done. If you're doing a lot of emails, do them together so you get into the swing of doing them. If you're going to go and meet people, string your meetings together so that you're in the flow for that too. It's a much better way of dividing your time up. The third thing is to block out time for important tasks. Be really clear about that. And also block out a little bit more time than you think you might need, because these things often take a little bit longer. And the fourth tip is to allocate time for interruptions or the unexpected, because you know they're going to happen. The best advice I got around planning is to plan to have 70 to 80% of your day allocated. And that gives you 20 to 30% for interruptions and the unexpected, because you know it's going to happen. So allocate time for interruptions. The fifth tip is to always put time in for breaks. Just so you can stop, just so you can rest, just so you can relax, just so you can change state and do something different. Get up and walk about for a couple of minutes. Go and have a snack someplace else. just so you stop and change state. It's really important. It's good for your well-being. It's also really good for your productivity and efficiency as well. The sixth planning tip is to share your plan. Whatever you're going to do, tell the people around you and your team, your manager, I'm going to plan differently. Here's what I'm going to do. Help me, encourage me. Most people will want to help you out. If they see you doing things better, they'll think better of you. They'll also ask you how you do it too. And be mindful of attention span. These days, most of us have got more things to do in the same amount of time. And also, if we're working virtually, there's more distractions, isn't there? So be mindful of your attention span and everyone else's, and allow for that. And that means we've got to change what we do rapidly, consistently, so we don't get stuck. So take a look at these 7, or look at some of yours, and I'd like you to commit to 2 of them for the next 4 weeks and let them become habits for you. And then when you're clear that you've done them and you've embedded them, get a couple more. Don't try and do them all at once. Just do a couple at a time. Make them normal. And then move on. Remember, particularly with time, we are what we pay attention to. So pay attention to what's going to help you. So that's how we plan. Let's move on and think about controlling our time. There's a few things we can look at here. The first thing is what we call the 4 Ds. You've got a busy week. There's 4 things we can do with the items in our diary. The first thing is do it. Is there anything on that list you can do right now? Then do it, get it done, it's out the way. The second thing is, if it doesn't have to be done today, delay it. Especially if somebody says their email is really urgent. How urgent? Well, you could do it next week. You can delay it. The third thing is, do you have to do it yourself? If not, delegate it. Remember the really good people in the past that you worked with, who gave you a chance, who delegated stuff to you, that let you develop and grow. You be that person to others. And by the way, it means you can control your time better too. And the fourth one is a simple one. If it doesn't need to be done, if you don't need to do it, drop it. Give it to someone else. Make sure that someone else is going to do it. Get approval to drop it because it's not relevant to you and your task this week. Now, your workbook's got a nice little quadrant where I'm going to invite you to jot down what you can drop, what you can delay, what you could do right now, what you can drop. What you could do is have a think about how much time you could save if you delegate something, if you drop something. It's not just about how much time you save, it's the time that you concentrate on other areas that are more productive for you. Pause the recording. I'll give you 5 minutes to have a think about what you can do right now, delay, drop, or delegate. Welcome back, everyone. How much time did you save today? Imagine if you did that for a week or a month or a year, how much time you could actually save. But there's other things we can do to control our time too. How many of you find yourself procrastinating? You just find a way of not doing certain things. And then you start talking to yourself about how mad and lazy you are for not doing this stuff. We've got to find some ways of turning this round. So what I want you to do is spend a few minutes having a think about what you do when you procrastinate to get yourself busy again and to get a bit of purpose back. Pause the recording. I'll see you in 5 minutes. How many did you think of, folks? We've got a right old list here. First thing is something to remember. Procrastination is common. I'd say pretty much everyone I know does it from time to time, including me. It's common. So have a laugh about it and remember it's about minimizing it rather than completely stopping it. The second point is to have a think about when you procrastinate. There might be certain individuals, certain tasks, or certain situations where you find yourself procrastinating more than others. There are usually patterns around this. Have a think about when you do this, and that helps you work out how to plan to stop yourself from procrastinating. The third way to get around procrastination is to get your tasks and break them down into smaller, more quickly manageable chunks. And that way, then, you're not contemplating a huge task. You're having to think about 6 quick and easy tasks you can do that also give you momentum and even more purpose. The fourth tip is to focus on your self-discipline. If I got everything done today, how will it help me? Have that sense of purpose that gets you out of bed of a morning. Imagine how good you'd feel when you've done the task that you don't really want to do. The fifth tip is to reward yourself for each success. Whenever you get around procrastination, whatever it takes to pat yourself on the back, give yourself a drink of water. Or tea or coffee or whatever it is. Make sure that you recognize and reward yourself for doing the stuff that you used to put off. It just helps you embed the habit. The sixth tip is to do tasks once whenever you can. You get stuck into it, you get it done, it's out the way, rather than a third of it and then another third of it tomorrow where you've got to catch up what you did yesterday. Get it all done at once if you can, folks. The seventh tip is to make sure you do the high priority urgent stuff first. A, it's urgent for a reason. B, you get people off your back. C, you get that satisfaction of having the most urgent stuff out the way first, and it's done. You create some momentum, you breeze through the other stuff. If you give yourself a finish time for a task, make sure that you give yourself a start time too. If someone says, hey, Paul, can you finish this project for me by the end of June? And we're in the middle of May. You make sure you start quickly. Get a start date so you start doing the work. Don't leave it till the 29th of June. You put yourself under a lot of pressure there. So whenever you get a project or a task, start time as well as a finish time. And the ninth tip is to control your clutter. If you've got a workspace or a desk and it's an absolute mess and you've got to look through it and search for things, that gives you a reason to put it off. But if it's clear and you know where everywhere is, it makes it easier for you to approach your tasks with a bit of purpose and get them done. By the way, it's the same on your computer. If your emails, if your documents are all well filed, they're easier to find. And when that happens, we find that all the stuff in our head is in more order too. There's less clutter there. And that means we get stuff done quicker and we haven't got to think about where it is, where is it? Oh, I can't be bothered. So there are your 9 tips to get around procrastination. Pick a couple and pay attention to them over the next few weeks. And when you notice that you're doing even better with them, pat yourself on the back, give yourself a reward. Now, procrastination is important, but what's also important with our time is to think about how we can use our energy a lot more effectively. What we've got on the screen right now is an energy cycle for a working day. This is what most people go through. You might be different, but this is what most people tend to go through. We come in before 9, things pick up a bit. We get that peak mid to late morning, After lunch, we get that bit where we're a bit tired, especially if we've had too much sugary stuff. And then we get a slightly smaller peak towards the end of what some people call a normal working day. Now, it may be that you do things differently. And it may be if you do shift work, that it's different on shift patterns. It's different on certain days, on certain shift patterns. What's really important here is that we think about how our energy is at different times of the day. This is important for our time management, because what that means is that the parts of the day that we can control, we can decide whether we need to do work that requires a lot of energy, or we can, let's be frank, do work that we could almost do in our sleep. If you look at what's on the screen, those A items, they're the items that, generally speaking, have the most urgency and the most importance. The B items towards the right-hand side, that's the stuff that's important but not so urgent. The C stuff is less important and less urgent. Let's alter this round depending on our energy levels at different parts of the day or week. When we get really good at this, we start to pick the tasks that we do that need more or less energy. We can allocate them accordingly. And what that means is that we tend to get through them more quickly. And then we feel better about ourselves. And then we feel like we've got a little bit more energy and a bit more confidence. And it's a great way of managing our time. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to jot down the activities that you could do, the best activities to do when you're at your peak time with your higher levels of energy. There is space in your workbook for this. So pause the video for a couple of minutes, spend 2 minutes jotting down the best things you can do when your energy is at its peak. How did you get on with that, folks? I bet you got loads of really good ideas. This is a great way of allocating tasks and managing your energy. There is something else that we've got here as well around your energy. In your workbooks, we've got something called a time log. We've just got the time from 8:30 in the morning till 6 in the evening. You can change it. And what I'd like you to do with this is use it for 2 or 3 days and just jot down what you're doing pretty much every hour of the day. It only takes you seconds. Have a think about how long you think things should take you and compare that to how long it actually does take you. And you can jot down who interrupts you, who bothers you, who helps you. And what you do is you get to know, again, who and what is using up your time. And we make the judgment call. Is that being used well, or is that being used less efficiently? What a time log does is it gives you some really good indicator of your really good or not so good time management habits. And then straight away, you've got some evidence to work with. So I'm going to encourage you to use that. Modify what we've got in the workbook to suit your own hours. Get a handle on how good you are at using your time. And more importantly, your energy. So there we have it, folks. Don't know about you, I'm up for a cup of tea or coffee. But before then, I want you to think about your time management takeaways. We've defined time management. We've looked at the value of your time. You've sorted out my in tray, and we've taken a look at the importance of considering the urgency and importance with our tasks. And we've built on that by looking at the Eisenhower matrix. And we've then looked at ways in which we can control our time. The 4 Ds, how we tackle procrastination, and how we manage our energy levels and allocate tasks accordingly. Do have a look at that time log as well. There's space in your workbook just to jot down what your takeaways are from our time together today. Remember, it's only as good as what you do differently the time you've spent looking at this. So make a note of what you're going to do differently and take it away. to use. So there we go, folks. We've spent an hour looking at managing your time even better. Enjoy being more efficient and using your energy better. And I hope to see you again on another of our videos. Have a great time managing your time better, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.